We recorded the previous vlog about the 4-ball cascade, and then Juliana came home after I'd edited it and she found this bit of paper. What was going on with this one?
This is a ladder.
Yeah.
A ladder and with numbers and X and 2.
It is actually called a ladder diagram, but it's mostly to work out a site swap. I actually said a site swap off the top of my head. I said it's 8x2, 8x2 star, but it wasn't. It's actually 6x2, 6x2 star, and I worked that out by a bit of paper. And so Juliana was like, what?
What is the site swap?
Yes, okay, so this is, we're going to go...
write it down?
Yeah, we can write down juggling patterns with site swap, and this video is going to be like the super starting level of what a site swap is. Not what jugglers think a site swap is, but actually what site swap is. So I'm going to pass the camera over to Juliana. We're going to go full number file. I'm going to go and get some paper and some pens. I've kept this bit of paper for years thinking one day I'll have a use for this big paper, and now I do. These are going to come in handy. First of all, a quick point of what site swap is. Site swap is, of course, a numerical representation of juggling, but so many jugglers don't quite understand even where the name site swap comes from. They think it's sort of like when you throw a ball from one hand to the other, it goes across to another site. But the site in site swap isn't where the ball is in your hand, it's actually where the ball is in the pattern. If you have 3 balls, let's say ball A, ball B, and ball C, and you're doing them in sequence, you're throwing that ball, that ball, that ball, when you loop around the pattern again, you're probably going to get A, B, C again, and then A, B, and C again. And we can, if you do this, you throw ball A, then ball B, then ball C, and then ball A, then ball B, then ball C, and then A, then B, then C. This is a classical 3-ball cascade, and how many beats later is this ball notated within the pattern again? We go 1, 2, 3, and it turns up there again. So this one comes around here, and this is going to be thrown 3 beats later, so of course we're just going to call that one a 3, okay? Ball number 2, object number 2, it goes here. It goes from here to 3 to there, so you come over here, okay? That one is notated 3 beats later, so that one is called a 3. And object C, we're going 1, 2, 3, also being notated 3 beats later, and that becomes a 3. And that is why this pattern is called the cascade, where you throw each ball 3 beats later. So this white one goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Every ball is notated again 3 beats later, is why it's called a 3, 3, 3. But generally, we always bring site swaps down into the smallest possible divisible thing. So if you loop 3 back over, it's like 3, 3, 3 is 3, 3, 3 recurring, is just 3. So you can either call it a 3, or a 3, 3, 3, or a 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. But generally, we just call it site swap 3. This seems so obvious that, I mean, people are obviously already going, oh, I don't even need to watch this video, of course I know what site swap 3 is. But site swap does not mean I throw a ball from one hand to the other hand. It's not about going to a different site, because this is not a 2-handed pattern. 3, 3, 3 is not a 2-handed pattern. To say site swap is 2 hands, or it's left hand, right hand, is an assumption that we make about site swap for the ease of communication between numerous 2-handed jugglers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because diabolists, let's have a look over here, when a diabolist talks about 3, 3, 3, they're talking about throws around about that height. Okay, so it goes white, red, blue, or black, red, blue. And it's exactly the same as we've got over here. Black, red, blue, black, red, blue. Juliana, question.
So the 3s doesn't say anything about the height in the pattern.
It does not say. Here we go. Let's now list the things that site swap is not talking about. Number of hands.
Okay.
Okay, nothing to do with that.
This could be done between the 2 of us.
It could be done with
4 hands.
Yep, 4 hands, 3 hands, 2 hands, 1 hand. It doesn't really have anything to do. It just denotes when it's going to be notated next. To demonstrate, here we go, 5 hands, okay? And here is 3 balls. Now, say this is here and this is here and this is here, and each hand is taking a turn. So if this is going to be notated 3 beats later, it goes 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be thrown from there again. So that ball is going to come over here.
Yeah.
And it's going to land there. This is the next ball, and it goes 1, 2, 3, and it's going to be thrown from there again. It was red next, okay? And this comes over here. And then ball number 3, 1, 2, 3 comes around here, and that's notated again there, so that gets thrown over there. And if you, of course, you can work out pretty quickly that this one can come back here, like this, that one gets thrown back there, this one comes over here. Siteswap does not care about the number of hands. It's never about the number of hands. And this is very important for Diablo players, as you can see over here, and also club passers. Club passers often will say, okay, we're going to do this passing pattern, we're going to do the 9, 7, 8, or whatever the pattern's going to be, and if you have 4 hands doing the 9, 7, 8, you probably get some kind of popcorny kind of pattern between 2 people with 4 hands. Club passers know exactly what a 9, 7, 8 is. Diabloists know what a 3, 3, 3 is, just in the same way as 2-handed jugglers or 5-handed jugglers. We can all know what it is, but it does not talk about the number of hands. Siteswap does also not talk about, as you say, the height of the throws, because, as we can see here, when you've got 4 hands or 5 hands, it doesn't matter, it's just like a zip across. It goes zip across here, and then zip this way, and then zip this way, and then zip this way. Not the height either, okay? And we can tell this.
There's a H missing.
Oh, is there? Oh, yeah. This is why I don't like writing down, okay. Not the height. This, again, going back to table juggling, this is a 3, 3, 3. This is a 3, 3, 3. You know, with a 1-handed 3, 3. It's just when the ball is, or even like this, okay? So if I'm going like this, and I'm always throwing the next ball, like, if you see what I mean, you could say that. All it does is, when is the ball, not even next thrown, when does it appear in the pattern next? Yeah. When does it appear in the pattern?
It's a kind of a beat-based...
No, it's not even about beats, because this is a 3, okay? Here we go, this is a 3. This is a 3, you know, like it does the beat when the next beat. It's obviously easier to animate stuff if everything stays in the same beat. It's easier to juggle. Between 2 people if you're all on the beat. It's kind of nicer to watch if you're all on the beat. It's easier to do complex patterns if it's all on the beat. But one of the most boring things to see on stage is someone always juggling on a beat and the beat never... I'm not saying it's boring, I'm just saying you're allowed to play with the timing. Siteswap doesn't care about the timing. For example, this bit in my show, when I go 4, 4, 1, 4, 4, 1 cross, 4, 4, 1, 4, 4, 1 cross, that cross in Siteswap, it should actually be a 4, 4, 1, 4, 4, 1, 3, 4, 4, 1, 4, 4, 1, 3, 4. Like that, it should be going across. You would actually notate as a 3. I say across because I want to put a pause in there and switch the pattern around to the other hand, okay? Okay. Weirdly enough, this also, if you are using 2 hands, Siteswap does not say which hand you should be throwing to. Of course, this is an assumption that lots of people make, which is a really great assumption, which is really handy for the communication. And what I want to say is all of these assumptions that people think that it's about, you know, so lots of people say with 2 hands that a 3 goes across to the other hand, but a 4 comes back to the same hand, and a 5 goes across to the other hand, and a 6 comes back to the same hand. Like, there's reasons why we just assume these things, and we assume them because juggling and Siteswap is a really great way, it's a really great shorthand for communicating between jugglers. If someone just says, oh, do a 5 and a pirouette, you kind of know that instead of doing a low throw, you do that. But if you say, throw a 7 and do a pirouette, you're like, oh, I've got loads more time to spin around, so you throw it way higher. It's just a great way to communicate between 2 people. That is the main reason why we leave in place all of these assumptions about Siteswap, which aren't in what Siteswap is. Siteswap isn't those. Vanilla Siteswap doesn't say how many hands, the height of the throws, the regular beats. It doesn't count all of that, because in each one of these cases you can find examples where it doesn't hold true. But between jugglers, we assume that we mean 2 hands.
But when you talk Siteswap 5, yes, it's not talking about the same 5 as the height. How do you differentiate between this?
By context. And this is the thing. Most jugglers, when they talk about Siteswap, they are existing within the context of 2-handed jugglers with that even balls come back to the same hand and odd balls cross across to the other hand. and an empty hand is a 0, and holding the ball in the next hand is a 2, but then people say, oh, do this trick, but with an active 2. So if you do a 4-2-3, 4-2-3, and the 2 is just this hold over here. So you can do something with the 2, but you can also do the same pattern with an active 2.
Okay.
You know, normally we assume, if we're talking about jugglers, that a 2 just means hold the ball in that hand until the next beat.
Right.
It means different things to a Diabolo player, or a three-handed pattern, or a 4-handed Siteswap, or anything else like that. It means different things, but by just keeping in place all of these assumptions, it means that it's easier to communicate between jugglers when someone says, do a 5-3-1, or whatever like that. Does that make sense?
Okay. So what else can it not? Is this all it can't, and it can?
Well, the thing is, it can do more stuff. What you can do is discover new patterns, and this is where the name Siteswap comes from. We're going to do the very first basic thing. So let's just do this. We generally always say the highest number first.
Oh, okay.